This presentation is on how to do web-based method authoring with Method Composer and DOORS Next. First, I just want to give you an overview of how Method Composer works. Essentially what we have is we have a library on the left-hand side of the diagram where we show the potentials of having IBM method content or your own custom method content or a mix of both. Method Composer is the basic Eclipse client which is used to take that content, make changes, and publish. We can see that we can publish to a website. We can also generate work item templates for engineering workflow management, and those work items in the work item templates link to that process website. What's new and what we're going to be focusing on in this presentation is on the interchange of Method Composer content with DOORS Next, so that you can do basic web authoring using DOORS Next and then use the recif import-export capabilities in both tools to bring content back and forth. If you're familiar with Method Composer, you're probably familiar with this Eclipse client, which is made up of a library of plugins, packages, and elements, as well as an element editor which lets you edit different kinds of elements. The elements have different rich text attributes which you can bring up a rich text editor for, and generally the tabs at the bottom are used to go to other dialogues that allow you to add relationships to other elements such as roles and work products. When we look at DOORS Next, we see the same capabilities more or less, but with different user interface. What we see is a single rich text editor, and what we have is we have headings for each of the rich text attributes that would be present in Method Composer's Eclipse client. We have support in DOORS Next for just the basic Method Composer types. That means roles, work products, tasks, and guidance. We do not have support yet for capability patterns, delivery processes, and configurations, as well as any user-defined types that you might have created. This is a role, System Architect, and we can see the relationships between the System Architect role and a task that it performs, outline the architecture, and a work product that the role is responsible for, the deployment model. So the first thing I want to show you is how to create a project area for doing web-based method authoring. So you go to the administration interface for DOORS Next, and you would create a brand new project area. So you click Create Project Area, you create the project, maybe I call it MEC Testing, and you add some users to it, you apply the standard requirements management application template, and you would click Save. After creating the project area, when you first visit it, it'll prompt you for a project template. So I'll just go to one I've already created, and this is the prompt that you will get. This project has no artifact types. You need artifact types before you can create any requirements artifacts, and you would click Apply a Project Template. You're then prompted with the available project templates, one of which is this MEC project template, and the description says this project template is intended for authoring method elements. So I'm going to cancel because I already have a project area set up. At this point I can now start creating method content. I can click on Artifacts, and I can click Create, and I can choose between the different types of method elements that are available to me. But before I go and create new method elements, I want to show you how you would bring in existing content from the Method Composer standard Eclipse library component. So here we are in Engineering Method Composer, the Eclipse client, and we're looking at the library that we use for the automotive compliance solution. In this library, the plugins have a suffix of MEC if they contain content that's not supported by DOORS Next, and that includes things like capability patterns and delivery processes. For other elements like, let's say roles, tasks, tool mentors, work products, custom categories, these are all supported in DOORS Next. So those ones are in a separate plugin which I've simply called Automotive. What you would do to bring it into DOORS Next is you click File, Export, you choose recif, that's requirements interchange format, you click Next, you choose whether you want the whole library or specific plugins. In my case I want to export to specific plugins. I select all the plugins that don't have that MEC suffix, and then I hit next, 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 and then I have a choice between including the rich text content or not. In general, I recommend that you do the export twice, first without the rich text, second time with. That way, when you import into DOORS Next, you can reserve all the IDs for elements before you try to assign rich text, because sometimes the rich text does cause issues. Alright, now I've already done this, so I'll go back to a project area, which I've already set up. So here I am in a project area that I've set up for testing Method Composer. I'm going to import that content by going to Artifacts, Create, Import Artifact, Import Requirements from a Regev file, Next, and I'm going to select the Regev file from where I exported it, which in my case is in this on my desktop in the temp2 folder. Then I upload it, and then I click Next, and it gives me a few questions such as, but most of these I can just take the defaults for, so I'll just say Next, and then it imports them. If you have a large library, it can take a while. In this case, I sped up time so that it would get to 100% very quickly. And import's complete. I close it. And now what I see is I see folders corresponding to each of the plugins that I brought in from the Eclipse client. And we can see all the different tasks organized into packages and so forth. So I'm going to start making some changes. The first thing I'm going to do is create a change set, and that's because I have configuration management enabled, and I want to make those changes possible to merge into multiple variants of the same process. So I'm going to navigate to one of the roles, and so here's my roles, and you can see I have a number of existing roles. I'm going to create a brand new role, create role. In this case I'm going to call this the UX designer, and I'm going to choose the artifact template for role and click OK. So I'm now on the method element for the UX designer role. And as you can see that there are headings for each of the major sections that are available to me in Method Composer. I don't use all of these, so I can delete any of them that I don't want to use, or I can choose to fill them in. So in this case I'll just type some text. The UX designer role is critical for designing good user experience based applications, something along those lines. And I can save. And I can insert diagrams, I can add tables. There's a lot of capability to this rich text editor. Now I want to add, let's say, a work product. So I'll go back to the folders and I'll go to work products here, and I'll create a new work product. In this case my work product is going to be called UX design. And I click OK. It brings me to the UX design, and so now I have a work product and I have a role, and I can continue. I could add a task, go to tasks here, and I'll create a brand new task which might be design the user experience. And again, I can provide a description. In this case, I'm going to add some steps. So what I'll do is I'll just copy this little template for a single step, and I'll create a bunch more. So I'll create step 1, step 2. So my first step here might be to model the user experience, and so on and so forth, and add some descriptions. This is how to do this. The other thing I can do is I can add the relationships. So I can go to links here, and I can say I want the output to be the UX design, and I can say I want the performing role or the primary performer to be the UX designer. Alright, I can save my changes and mark it as done. And now I'm going to modify an existing task. So I'll go find the one of the tasks that I already defined. So I'll open that folder, I'll go to Solution, I'll go to Systems Engineering folder. In this case I'm going to modify the Plan System Qualification Test. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another output to this, or another input I should say, and one of my mandatory inputs is going to be the UX design. And maybe I'll modify some of the text here as well. So I'll say, I'll edit the actual rich text here, and I'll say provide an overview, context, goals of the test plan, and user experience goals. Maybe that's what I'll say. And just for completeness, I'll go to one of my custom categories here, and I will modify that category, which will be up at the top level here, which is where the custom categories are for this plugin at the top level. And I will go to the Work Products custom category here. I'll modify it, and I'll add a link to the using the parent of to point to my new work product, the UX design. And now we'll see the power of using change management. I'm going to compare my changes against what's already in the stream. So I can see what are all these changes that I've made, and someone can review them, and so forth. So I'm going to click Next because I haven't changed the basic configurations. What I've changed is method content. So we can see here artifacts. I've added design the user experience, UX design, and UX designer. So it's showing my new elements. It's also showing me that in both the original stream and in my change set, I've made some edits. So I've made changes to the task plan system qualification test. And if I click on it, it'll show me what's different. And specifically what I've changed is I've added a link here to the UX design. We can see it's in the new and not in the old. And we can see under the steps, here's some highlighting of the change text that I've inserted, specifically the user experience goals. Now let's suppose at this point I'm ready to bring this content into Method Composer for publishing. What I do is I go to the little wheel icon here, go to Manage Component Properties, or if you don't use Change Management, it would be Manage Project Properties. And you go to Recif, and you can either use the existing Recif definition that we brought the elements in, and you could just add your new elements here. So what are the new things I added? I added, let's see here, I added the new role, UX designer, and I added a new work product. Under work products, UX design. And added a new task. Design the user experience. Okay, and as long as I have my new elements there, any relationships between them will be carried across. At this point, I can save my changes to my Recif definition, and I can export. It's important when you create an export Recif file that you include every element that any of your new elements link to. And so in general the recommendation is to export and import basically by plugin. And you can set up views so that you make sure that you have all the elements that you need for any subset that you might want to import or export. Once the create recif file process completes, you click download and you can save your file. And then that downloads it, and there it is, requirements3.recifc. That's my file. At this point, I can return to Method Composer, the Eclipse client, and I can now import that recif file. So file, import, recif. I can browse to the location where I downloaded it. In this case, requirements3.recifc. And it really, generally you want to choose the merge option. And there's a user's guide that explains these other options if you want to experiment with those as well. And I'm going to skip doing the backup, but you might want to recommend doing backups just in case something goes wrong. When the import completes, you can check to see whether your changes came in okay. So you could go down here into the various content packages and check to see if your role is there. And there's UX Designer, perfect, along with the text that I had included, along with the link to the UX design as the responsible work product. So everything is brought in across correctly. At this point, I could then do configuration publish and view the resulting published website with my new changes. So here's the republished automotive solution website, and I'll expand the custom category for work products. Sure enough, there's UX design as expected, and we can see if we scroll down that there's a linkage showing that it is input to the plan system qualification test task, and it is an output. It is output from design the user experience, and it's modified by the UX designer. In addition to what I've shown you so far, there's a lot of other benefits to using DOORS Next. For example, you can add links very quickly between sets of elements by simply dragging and dropping from views. So if you have a view with all the roles and a view with all the tasks, you can simply drag and drop the roles onto the tasks in order to add those linkages. Reviewing and commenting features. Rich diagramming features with all kinds of rich capabilities for creating flowcharts and business process model diagrams, UML structure diagrams, and so on. Also revision and audit history. You can go back in time and see exactly what was changed, why, and by whom. If you'd like to learn more, please visit us on jazz.net. There's an article there on getting started with Method Composer, and if you just go to the jazz.net forum, you can search for those articles that are tagged with #MEC. Thank you very much.